What's up and welcome back to the video. Today's video, as the title says, is going to be a training Q&A. So I've gotten some questions actually from my last YouTube video, along with some questions I received through Instagram, and we're going to dive into them today. It's about 10 questions, all related to marathon running, recovery, how to do it with kids, how to get faster. So if these are things that sound like they interest you, grab yourself a cup of coffee and let's dive in. Full disclosure, I actually recorded all of my answers to these questions and my mic wasn't working. So this is round two. Hopefully you'll get the more refined version of my first initial responses, but we're going to dive into question number one, which is how to make a marathon training plan. So nowadays with AI, you could do something as simple as asking ChatGPT to write you one, and boom, there you would have it. Similarly, my first marathon did just a generalized training plan. I used the Hal Higdon's training plan, and it's just a blanket plan that gets you from start to finish, and I was able to complete my marathon. The second time around, I hired a coach, and it all comes down to how much you want to invest into the process. Now, my personal opinion, if you're asking, is marathon training requires a lot of time, energy, and effort. And if you're gonna take the time to train, in my opinion, make sure that you're training the right way and utilizing a coach who's been there, who's gone through it, who's coached other people through it, I think is the most effective way to get it done and make sure that you're doing it the best way that you can. Again, I'm of the all-in mentality. If I am doing it, I want to absolutely do it at the best way that I can. So it'll require a little bit more money, but you'll have way more personal guidance as far as what if you miss a day? When you have the blanket training plan, you kind of have to make your own decisions there. And if you have a coach, say you miss a day or you have an injury, you can simply just text them and ask for their opinion based on their experience. So those are the two routes that you can do. It just comes down to how much money you want to invest into it. Second question, how do you find time to train for marathons with young kids? That is a great question, and I can't say that my answer will ever be correct or that I have it right. But I'll share with you advice that I got from a friend before I had kids. I remember vividly asking her because she runs races, she's super fit, and she has 3 kids. And I asked her how the exact same question. And her response was this. She was like, Alexa, you love doing this. Fitness is really important to you. And if it's important to you, you're going to make time to do it. So that's my answer to you is if it's important to you, you will find a way to make time. And the way that I've done it is I'll take a look at my schedule for the upcoming week. I'll look for holes in it and where I could in my training. And if there aren't holes, I create them. So if it means asking for help from my husband for a long run on the weekend, I'm lucky to have that. I also have family that lives nearby and a mom that's always willing to help as long as she's available. And so I'll utilize her sometimes. If the kids skip a nap and she's around, I have her come over and that's how I get my runs done. So that is a more individualized response. But as you can see, if I looked at my schedule, I know the solutions that I have available to me, and looking at my schedule allows me to use them to make time to get the training done. So find a way to make time if it's a priority to you. All right, this is a common one. How do I get faster? So my first marathon training block, I had no idea about any of these things. Like I said, I was following just what the sheet told me, and I had no further reference than that. Now, having a few marathons under my belt and with the goal of getting faster each time, I've learned. And I would say the two things are run your easy runs easy. So running my easy runs easy have allowed me to show up and run more consistently. So I can run every day of the week if I need to, because I'm not killing myself every single time I run. I'm running at an easy pace where I could talk to you like this. And secondly, which is really important that I did not do my first marathon training block, is have a speed day. A day where you're running either a threshold run, which means close to your max heart rate, but not quite there, or if you're doing intervals, you're doing 800s around the track and shooting for specific times within those 800s with specific rest periods. Again, that's something that you're probably not going to get from just a blanket plan. You're going to need to utilize a coach. And if you're that invested in running that you want to get faster, that's probably the route that you're going to go. But again, there's a lot of information on social media that if you want to do the research and you can dive into it. So, how do I know I'm running at an easy effort? So my previous video, I talked about zone 2 heart rate training, but I am also a huge advocate of going by feel. And so when I say easy effort, it should feel easy. But secondly, it should be something that you and I can have a conversation. You should be able to, if you have headphones in and want to catch up with a friend, you should be able to call them and just chat while you're running, which I've actually done on some of my long training runs. It has mentally saved me because sometimes you get to a place where you're like, I can't listen to another book or podcast. And that's how you do it. So easy effort, gauge it by how it feels. It should feel easy. And when you get into the depths of a training program, your legs are going to feel heavy. You're going to feel the fatigue. The fatigue is going to be there. So don't be so focused on the pace that you normally do or you should be doing. If you're feeling garbage that day, go what feels easy that day. So this question actually comes from our last YouTube video. It is Modest Chick 15. And I'm glad you asked this question because I think it's important to share with everyone. And it was, how do I maintain my cycle and fertility through training? So my guys, before you leave me here, this answer will actually apply to you too. When I was at the peak of my last marathon block, I felt extreme fatigue. Like I was just like dragging through the day. And I had an upper respiratory infection that lasted like 6 weeks. I was like, there's gotta be something wrong. So I went to my physician and I asked for a full blood panel, which I highly encourage you all to do. Now, I'll tell you this, it costs $150 out of pocket, but I'll tell you why I think this makes sense. A lot of people are quick to, on social media, every supplement company is sharing this or that supplement, gives me more energy, makes my hair look better. And people are quick to throw money at that. But they don't have an individualized view of what their body actually needs. And this gives you that. So if you want to throw money at something, honestly, I think it makes most sense. $150, they're going to give you you'll have all your hormonal data. You'll have vitamin deficiencies as well as your red and white blood cell count information, which is highly important, especially for runners. Hematocrit is a really important indicator to look at, and that is our red blood cells when we are running and physically pounding our feet to the ground. This is weird, but it will actually destroy or damage our red blood cell platelets. So typically, runners will have a lower hematocrit. And there are things that you can do, both through vitamins and diets, to increase that and feel overall more energy. But without that blood panel, you won't know what you need to be dialing in on, and you're just kind of blindly throwing solutions and throwing money at things that you think might happen, where this can give you specifically what your body needs. So I highly encourage that for my guys and my gals. Now this is for my girls, and I have yet to personally use this, but I have friends that have used this for both conception and birth control. And that is the Oura Ring. It was recently approved by the FDA for cycle tracking and ovulation. The FDA goes through a lengthy vetting process, so if it has been approved by them, I feel that it's legitimate. Again, I haven't personally utilized this. I have friends that have and have spoken highly of it. So that would be an investment that if it's important to you and you're prioritizing that, it might be good to look at. Personally, I'll just share my story. I'm really old school and I just go by feel. If my body feels off, if my cycles are wonky, I got the blood test done. I'll see where my hormone levels are at. But also I had my kids so close together. Between my son and my daughter, it was 1.5 years. And then between this third, it's going to be 2 years. and I breastfed on top of it. So that actually affects your cycle, and that it took a year for me to get my cycle back. And then even after that, it's normal for it to be wonky. So I've gone by feel, and my feel hasn't been normalized, so I can't, that's my personal experience. Oh, we had a crash in the kitchen. So as far as personally, that's my cycle tracking, and that's kind of what I've experienced. I hope that helps, and I'm glad that you asked the question. I want you guys to feel like you can ask questions and that I'm actually going to take the time to respond, because I think it's important that we communicate through this. So thank you again for asking. What strength training is good for runners? I get to the gym and don't know what to do because I don't want to be sore for my runs. LOL. Okay, so this is a common question because I think a lot of runners have purely just run and they've overlooked strength training, and admittedly, when you get into these serious marathon training blocks, it requires so much of your time that there's less and less room to just carve out, or it feels as though there's less and less room to carve out for strength. So if I had to prioritize like the top 3 movements that I think are really important for runners, it's squatting, it's RDLs, and Bulgarian split squats. Now, if you can add some dynamic movements like a box jump to this just to get some explosiveness and get your body used to, if you think about running, it's essentially your body has to get used to supporting all of your weight on one foot and transitioning it. So you need to train both a compound movement like a squat, but also an individualized working on your left and your right and explosive strength. How do I start running without getting shin splints? I cannot tell you how many times people have said, oh, you run marathons? I tried running, but my body's just not built for it. I get the worst shin splints every time. And I think it usually happens for 2 reasons. And I did both of these things when I started running. Being an athlete, I played lacrosse and hockey and field hockey all growing up. And those are high intensity sports. So anytime I tried going for a run, I thought that I needed to feel like I was just pushing myself to the ultimate threshold every run. So I would run really hard. My body wouldn't be able to recover, and I would try and show up again the next day, and my body just wouldn't respond. I'd either feel the same thing. I'd feel like I'm getting a shin splint, or I was like pulling my calf, or I'd get a niggle here or there, or I was just so exhausted that I couldn't physically run the pace that I thought I was supposed to be running the next time. I think it happens partially because your body's just not used to doing it and you're asking a lot of it. Or even if you are running that easy run easy and you're experiencing some form of shin splint, I think it might be because the duration you've ramped up a little bit too quickly. So I like to follow the 10% rule. If I ran my first run for 10 minutes, I would wait a week until I increase that. So make sure when you're getting started, you're running those easy runs easy and you're utilizing that 10% rule, increasing slowly over time. Do you make your own plans or do you use a coach? So this is unique because I do make plans for other people, but personally, as I mentioned, I grew up playing sports. I've always had a coach and I enjoy it. I think it's really important to have a coach, to have an individualized approach to your training. Like I said, this training is no joke. It takes a lot of your time, a lot of your effort and energy, and I don't want to leave anything up to guessing. I want to know that I have put everything that I possibly can into showing up to the race, to race day and that starting line, having put in the ultimate best work that I can. So I use a coach. I use Jeff Cunningham. He has a training company called Cunningham Running. I'll put his socials here. Jeff is incredible. He is enthusiastic, he's motivating, he's realistic, and he will shoot it to you straight. If I called Jeff up today and said, Jeff, I run a sub 3, he'd be like, Alexa, you're shitting me. You're not doing that. But he'll say, eventually we can get there. That's the motivating and positivity that he has. But he will shoot it to you straight. He's realistic with your goals. And anytime I have a question that comes up in training, if I miss a training day, if I'm just not recovering properly, I don't feel like I executed a workout as well as I would have wished, Jeff is always there for me to text and bounce questions off of, and he's a wealth of knowledge. So I love having a coach. I love using a coach, and I couldn't recommend using a coach more, honestly. I truly believe in it because even as a coach, I use my own coach. So I use a coach, but like I said, it all comes down to preference. Do you stretch? I need a good stretching routine. I wish I could say that I consistently stretched, and I should probably make that a goal throughout this next training block. So here it is. I'm gonna make my commitment right here. I'm gonna stretch more this next training block. Prior to like, if I'm gonna go out for a training run, I've done some research on static stretching versus dynamic stretching. Static stretching would be if I just stood here and stretched my arm or stretched my quad, that would be a static stretch. The research that I've seen is that static stretching does not help as much as dynamic stretching does. So dynamic stretch would be like doing high knees, doing butt kicks, some leg swings to open up the hips. Dynamic stretching can be utilized and is good for you. I probably don't do it as much as I should have. I do utilize a physical therapist. So a friend of mine, Dr. Lindsay Barnhart, I'm gonna put her Instagram here, her social media. She's a wealth of knowledge. I've used her for every marathon training block, and she posts tons of stretching routines for whatever your personal needs are. So a lot of times I'll just go on there, look at one of her routines, and then do it while watching TV just to wind down the day. So that's usually a good way of how I make time and fit it in. I just have to practice doing it more consistently because I do have the time if I'm watching TV and just sitting there to do it. So that's it for the stretching that I do. My favorite run shoe. Ooh, I'm gonna be quick on the trigger with this one. It is the Asics Super Blast. I think their original edition was my favorite. The second edition that they came out with just had more of like a vented technology that like would help your foot breathe better. So I did appreciate that, but I just felt like the first was the best. It was my favorite. It's a great everyday shoe when you're getting into those marathon training blocks. You have really high running volume. You want a shoe that you feel is protecting your foot, keeping you injury free, and just like you're bouncing like on a cloud, like it's really protecting you. And that's exactly what that shoe is. It's expensive. All of these run shoes are becoming really expensive, but so I really like that. There's a new company out called Mount to Coast, and it's the R1, super cushiony shoe, and that is a very fairly priced shoe. I think it comes out to like $150, which sounds crazy because even $150 is a lot, but I really enjoy that shoe as well. And then for a race day shoe, I use the Nike Alphafly 3s. Those were incredible. I hated the Alphafly 1 and 2. 3 came out, love that race shoe. I will probably race in it again unless they come out with something new that's better. And newer doesn't always mean better. Like I said, I like the Super Blast 1. So that's it for favorite running shoes. That's like an everyday and then a race day shoe. And I could probably make a video, honestly, on shoes in general, just the difference between running an everyday shoe and a race day shoe, but those are my two faves. All right, what do you do for recovery? So kind of a general question, but if I had to narrow it down, I'd say recovery comes down to nutrition, sleep, and then using some tools for recovery, because I do believe that those help. So nutrition, honestly, with the kids, we're in such a routine that I'm able to pretty much eat the same thing every day. And as training volume increases, I get more hungry, and again, I just listen to my body. If I feel like I need more food to fuel, I do. I think that nutrition and fueling around your runs is really important. So utilizing carbohydrates and hydration on your runs to make sure that you're fueling enough that your body can exert the energy without depleting it so that you can recover for the next day, and also staying hydrated. Because if you are dehydrated, I've done plenty of runs in the summer where I'm like, I know I didn't drink enough water and electrolytes yesterday, and I am feeling it. So paying attention to those. Sleep is tough because as a mom, I can't talk on sleep. I never get enough sleep. It's always interrupted or not enough. Good night's sleep is very few and far between, but I do my best to carve out to make sure that I'm sleeping around 7 hours. Again, that's what I aim for, but it doesn't always happen, to be honest. And then as far as like recovery tools, I bought this thing called the NeuroBall. In my profile, I have an Amazon storefront, and it'll be on there if you're curious at like what it looks like or using it. It's essentially, I used to use a lacrosse ball and throw it in the freezer, but it's essentially a lacrosse ball with little spikes on it. So it just kind of helps stimulate. I'll rub my feet on it, and then it also breaks in two that you can actually stick it on the wall and use it if you have like an upper body. I'll get tight like right up here just from running because I hold my water bottle and I hold my phone. So I can utilize it for that. So the NeuroBall and then the Normatec boots, they are expensive. You can use, if you have an FSA or an HSA through your work, you can use those, so it essentially makes it tax-free. But I love the Normatec boots. And end of the day, if I'm winding down, just watching, a movie, TV, just to wind down for the day, I'll throw those things on and they feel amazing on the legs. So it's a big investment, but like I said, if you're investing your time and energy, I'm of the all-in mentality that you want to do it the right way. Those are the things that I utilize for recovery. Last question here. What's a good lift run split? Oh, this is my UPS guy. Hi. He's waving at me. Split this up, like if you wanted to work out 4 to 5 days a week and you've got an hour to do it, so 60 minutes. I would split that up by 3 runs and 3 lifts. And the way I would do this, I'll put a little graphic here so that you can have a visual of what I do. But Monday would look like a run and lower body lift day. Tuesday would be an upper body lift day. Wednesday would be a run. Thursday would be a rest because it's midweek. You're coming off 3 training days. Then Friday would look like a full body, like functional training lift, so that you're kind of getting the heart rate up, but you're also getting your strength training in as well. And then Saturday would be a longer run with Sunday as a rest day. And then I would increase that weekly. So make sure that you have somewhere where you're writing these workouts down. For running, Strava is a really easy free app. If you have a running watch, just connects to there so you could see your running mileage, what you did each run, what you did weekly, and then as I mentioned in one of the questions before, increasing that by 10% each week if you're looking to get better and run longer and faster. And then with lifts, you'll want to manipulate how many reps you're doing, so increasing the amount of reps that you're doing or increase the weight that you're doing it at. And writing it down just always helps give a reference point to look back on, see what you did, and then help yourself improve. That's it for the questions. And I plugged it a few times, but I will mention it again. I enjoy help training athletes that are probably like you, that are interested in this stuff, that nerd out over this stuff. And I like helping and giving guidance to people that have questions like this. So if you're looking to focus on that this year, I just put a new blog post on the All In Athletic Club. Check it out. And this year, our focus is growth. We are growth-minded individuals in the persistent pursuit of our health and performance goals. That's our mission. And if that aligns with what you're trying to accomplish and you're looking for some direction, I'm happy to help you. But hopefully the answers to these questions somewhat helped you. And I like doing something like this because a lot of times when I'm talking behind the camera, I hope I'm providing value, but when I get specific questions from you, I know that I'm answering specific things that you guys are interested in. So this was fun. I know last video I had promised that I was gonna do a strength training session and we would cover that. So that will be the next video. Stay tuned for that one. And thanks for chatting with me today. I hope it gave you something of value, and I will see you in the next video.